5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's about to get dirty in here. Heavy. Wow. That's joke live.
Can you deliver? I'm gonna look at you, laying out the question.
I love it.
Put the water around me. I'm coming from
Welcome to the sound.
Horns up, everybody. Welcome to another Friday night edition of the Electric Circus radio show right here at MetalMessiahRadio.com. We're always your metal music messiah. Okay, here with me tonight we have Paul Hayward, drummer of the British thrash metal band Obzidian. Paul is here to talk with us about his band Obzidian. Obzidian has been a British thrash metal band since 2001. Previous offerings by the band: The Disciples of Death full-length album in 2003. They had Obzidian, the self-titled EP, in 2007. Damned Eternal full-length album in 2012. Concrete Psychosis full-length in 2014. Obliteration Process full-length album in 2016. First of all, Paul, please tell us who the members of the band are and how did you all meet?
So myself, Paul Hayward, I'm drums and background vocals now and then. We've got Matty J on vocals. He's just like our lead vocalist. We've got Barry Foster, he's our guitarist, and Matthew Jeff's our bass player. We met, me, Barry, and Matthew Jeffs met at school when we were about 12 or 13 years old. And we basically just went through school together. We had a couple of bands before Obzidian started, but we were just finding our feet really and just messing around really. And we just started a couple of projects, and then once we left school when we were about 18, we then formed Obzidian. And then that's been our main band ever since. So next year actually marks 20 years as a band, so pretty big milestone for us.
Oh, wow. Please tell us what the name Obzidian came from. What's the origin of that name?
Basically, I studied geology in school and college. And obsidian is basically a glassy black rock that forms when volcanic ash is thrown into the air and it cools really quickly, basically. So we had some of that on a field trip that we went on, and that's basically it really. We were just deciding on names, and we thought that like a glassy black rock kind of fit what we were about at the time, and we just kind of changed the S to a Z because there's already another band called Obzidian in London with an S, so it's traditionally spelled with an S, so we just changed that to a Z, and that was it really. We just kind of decided on that name.
Paul, please tell us about your latest single taken from the upcoming album Shadow Sinister, due for release here in 2020. Please tell us about the new album.
Yeah, Shadow Sinister, we started writing that probably at the end of last year, and we've just been sort of writing ever since. Obviously, when COVID started to hit in sort of February, March time, we all got kind of locked down, and we haven't been able to rehearse or really write anything since. But the advantage of technology, the way that it's going, is before we got to that stage, I actually moved to Wales. The band's based in the Midlands in England, sort of around the Birmingham area. But I moved away about 200 miles away just before that. And because of that, I managed to get our vocalist and our bass player set up with like a home studio setup so they could do their own recording, send all the files to me, and then I can mix and master it because I do all the production for our stuff as well. Right. And I've actually got at the minute at my parents' house where we're at the moment because COVID has obviously stopped our house sale from going through, so we're still waiting to move house at the moment. Right. Luckily my parents have got quite a lot of land and space, so I've managed to get my drums set up and get a little studio set up here as well. So even though we're all locked down and we can't really see each other face to face, we've still maintained the ability to write and record the album, which is quite good. So yeah, we're just working on that at the moment. We did actually release a video from that album called A Kiss from Nimbus, probably last year. No, yeah, I think it was the end of last year, start of this year, around that time. It seems like a year ago now, but yeah, that was the sort of first single from that. But we are remixing that for the album launch because we kind of we had to get the video out on a deadline, and then obviously I wanted to redo the audio. But yeah, hopefully with this system that we've got set up, where everybody can record separately and send all the files to me, we should be able to get that finished up this year and get that released. And hopefully, if the government advice lets us, we can start touring again towards the end of the year. So.
Right, I know you can't wait to start touring again. Tell us about some previous metal festivals you attended, and what was it like? How did that go?
Yeah, 2018 I think was probably one of our best years. We played Bloodstock Festival in Derbyshire. We played Hammerfest, which was based in Wales at the time. We played one called Thrashosaurus down in Norwich, which is towards London way, and that's like a thrash focus festival. And we've played quite a few of the sort of big festivals that we've always gone to as fans, and we've always enjoyed sort of hanging out and having a good time and watching our favourite bands up on stage and thinking, you know, one day we'll get there. And a couple of years ago that started to happen for us, so we just want to build on that really. So yeah, we're gaining a bit of traction, and we actually today we just got announced for a festival called Hard Rock Hell in Ibiza, which is like a week-long road trip on multiple venues around the island of Ibiza. So we'll be doing that next year as well. This year has obviously been kind of wiped out by the COVID outbreak, so we're just kind of focusing on the album really. But then as soon as we're allowed to go out and play again, we're going to spread our wings a bit further and see where we can get to.
Paul, you also record mixes and masters all of Obsidian's music yourself through your company, Polar Services. Please tell us about your company.
Yeah, it was started a couple of years ago, probably a bit longer than that now. Essentially, because I've got a lot of friends who are also in bands, and the UK circuit is quite a tight-knit circuit of, you know, a handful of bands tend to play in one area, then there'll be another handful of bands that play in the other area, and they all kind of cross over. Knowing a lot of bands can't really afford big studios or to spend 3 weeks paying a sort of pro studio prices, I came up with this idea that I'd use my 15, 20 years of experience of mixing, mastering and production, and essentially offer that as a discounted service to other bands who we had toured with, or other bands that we knew through friends of friends, and just through the circuit of the gig circuit really in the country. So that's how it started really. And I've always, apart from one album really early on, I've always recorded and produced all the Obzidian stuff. So it just kind of felt natural that when Obzidian weren't touring or writing or playing, I'd have like another outlet to stay within the music industry, and then I basically started offering that as a service, and I've done some quite good stuff with that so far. So hoping to build that up again next year as well.
What are some of the main topics you cover in some of your songs with Obzidian?
That's probably a good question to ask Matty, our vocalist, because he predominantly writes a lot of the lyrics. I mean, Damned Eternal was a concept album where I kind of had a story sketched out in my mind, and me and Matty kind of wrote that together. And that was basically a story about a girl who kills her parents and gets locked up in prison. And then it's kind of like her own internal battle with her mind, and the whole album plays through the different scenarios and the different stages of that process. But a lot of the current albums, especially Concrete Psychosis and this latest one, Shadow Sinister, they're more sort of back to our roots of just balls out thrash metal. So a lot of the songs are about things like living in a city, dealing with prostitution and violence and everything in between, drugs, all of those kind of subjects. But some of them are just about other things as well. One of the most interesting ones on this album is A Kiss from Nimbus, which was basically came out of a meeting that our vocalist had with an ex-MI5 agent who was also in the SAS. They met at a bar, got talking, and he's an author. He's written a book about his time in all the forces and special forces that he was in. And he basically sort of collaborated with us on a special project, and we made a music video that kind of used the book as an inspiration. And then he was happy to sort of cross promote that with us as well. So that was kind of a cool little project. So I think it depends on Matty's headspace at the time, what he writes about, but he draws a lot of influence from his own life. And then now and then we'll do a couple of concept things where we just take an idea of a story and just flesh out a few tracks from that as well. So it really does vary, really.
Who does the cover art for your albums?
The latest album, it's a guy called John Pedley in Manchester, and he's got a company called Pedley Art, and he's really, really good. He's really understanding, and he really works with you to get the result that you want. And he's, I think this is our first project with him. He's also done some stuff for Polar Services for me and some personal projects, but it's the first thing we've done with him for the band, and we're really happy with the result. And then previous to that was a guy called Andy Pilkington from Very Metal Art, and he's done a lot of lyric videos for quite big bands like Flotsam and Jetsam and Lawnmower Death and all the rest of it. So he's quite a well-known person in that kind of circle of making lyric videos and artwork and stuff like that. And we really love the stuff that he did on Obliteration Process with that as well.
Please tell us about the thrash metal scene coming up in the UK.
It's growing. It's definitely growing. I think there's been a bit of a resurgence lately because we've been around for 2 decades now, so we've seen a lot of natural decline and rise of various different styles. When we first started, a lot of the bands that we would play on the circuit with would be nu metal, or they'd be like Korn, Slipknot influenced. We never really had that influence. We've got some of it, but we were more influenced by old school Anthrax, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer. All of the early death metal and thrash metal bands really made up what we were about. And Baz, who writes all of the riffs and the main structures for the songs, he's always been big into AC/DC and Jethro Tull, so there's a lot of like the prog influences there as well. So at the moment, the scene is really, really good, especially around the northwest, like Manchester, and down in London and even Birmingham, where metal really started in this country, really, with Black Sabbath and all of the early new wave bands. It's really resurged lately. It's definitely coming back, and there's a lot more British thrash bands coming through, like Silosis and Shrapnel and Evile. There's a lot of these sort of new age thrash bands coming through in the UK, and it's really good to see, and that they are growing. So at the minute we're in a good place, and hopefully it'll just continue to grow.
Who are some of the legendary drummers you look up to and that you were in awe in that made you want to be in a band and be a drummer to begin with?
That's probably the easiest question anyone asks me, because it's always Vinnie Paul. Vinnie Paul from Pantera was really my sort of light bulb moment. As soon as I started to get into Pantera, probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, Vinnie Paul was always the person I tried to emulate, the person I tried to learn skills from. And then as I grew and got into more styles of music, there was drummers like Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater, and more recently Chris Adler from Lamb of God. So, and anybody with that kind of technique, I mean, Chris Adler's got a real groove to his drumming that a lot of thrash drummers don't. And I try to incorporate a lot of that and try and keep the groove as well as the thrash, and so it's not just balls out one monotone thing. You've got mixes of blues and rock in there as well as the thrash. But yeah, I'd definitely say Vinnie Paul is my main influence, and then probably Chris Adler and Mike Portnoy after that. So pretty good drummers to have as influences.
Yeah, great drummers, great influences. Paul, please tell us about your drum kit and the company that makes it and why you like that kind of kit. And please tell us of any Pro Tools you like to use in recording and performing live with.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, because we're doing a lot of multi-band shows, so we'll either be the headliner or we'll be main support, and obviously we share kit, and a lot of different bands use that kit. Anything from 3 or 4 bands to 10 bands if it's an all-day event. I've just got a Pearl Export ELX at the moment, because I did have a Mapex Saturn kit, which I absolutely loved, and I wish I'd never sold it, to be honest. But the problem is when you're in these multi-band situations and you're rigging up and setting down 2 or 3 times a week, which we used to do, it does take its toll on the gear. And the more expensive the gear is, the more expensive it is to replace it or repair it. So now I've just got a Pearl ELX, which is a purple to black fade. It looks great, sounds great when you've got a proper good set of heads on it. I use Evans heads all the way around. And the main thing that I use is a Trick Pro 1V twin pedal. So as soon as I found Trick pedals, which are obviously made in the USA, that was like night and day for me. I've tried so many double kick pedals and never really felt happy until I tried the Trick. And that's my main sort of investment in my drum kit, if you like. It's probably worth more than the rest of the kit combined, to be honest. Cymbals, I tend to go for Meinl, which are a German company. And they're just very aggressive, very loud and projecting, and I just like how they cut through. And yeah, in terms of recording and that kind of stuff, we are kind of at the mercy at our level in this industry. We're at the mercy of the sound guys of the venues that we play. So the one thing I have really invested in is in-ear monitoring, because it just gives you a consistent, good sound, and I can take a feed off the desk and run it into my monitors, and I don't have to worry about what the stage monitors are doing or whether they're not working properly or they're not the best, kit in the world. And that's really the only thing that I take from the studio that ends up in live use, apart from a sample pad. So I've just got a sample pad from Roland that will just trigger some sub drops and some samples and that kind of stuff. But I'm pretty sort of old school when it comes to my kit. It's just a 5-piece, a bit like Vinnie Paul used to have, except I've only got the one bass drum and the double kick pedal. So it's just 5-piece with a custom snare that me and my dad actually made one evening a couple of years ago, and that's pretty much it, to be fair.
How are you and the bandmates dealing with the lockdown with the COVID-19 pandemic? What are you doing in your spare time? Maybe working on new material?
Yeah, I think at the moment, like I said, we're mainly focusing on getting the Shadow Sinister material recorded and mixed and mastered and ready to release. That's our main focus at the moment, because there's a few little bits of guitar that need to be done. I think my vocalist finished all of his tracks for the album last week. I did all of the drums last year, so they've been in the bag for a long time. And then our bass player is just kind of making his way through the material as well. So we've probably got another 3 or 4 weeks of actually getting the raw materials together. Then it's just mix and master and ready to carry on with that. And then from there, yeah, we probably will start writing new material. We spent a lot more time focusing on our social media presence and just getting our name out there a bit more. While everybody's in lockdown, they're obviously using social media a lot more. They're using a lot more internet applications because you can't get out and meet people and watch bands live. But apart from that, I mean, I've got a 4-year-old daughter, so I'm basically a full-time dad because I've been furloughed from my job. So just looking after her, really. And so my 2 main things that I do is just look after my daughter and mix and master metal. So good kind of split.
How do you respond to your fans and social media? How do you react and respond to them?
We've always been a band that's been quite personal with people. A lot of people who come to see us at shows will turn up to multiple shows, and you'll see the same faces come into multiple locations. Regardless of distance, some people tend to follow us all around the country, which is quite humbling and quite cool. But yeah, if anybody messages us, we'll message them back. If they need help or if they need advice, we'll help them with that as well. We're kind of an open book when it comes to that. Really, we don't really filter anything out. We're not aggressive towards anybody or anything like that. At the end of the day, we're just normal guys like every other band, and we just chat to people as if they were sitting with us having a beer. So that's how we've always been. It's we're just quite normal guys, really.
What is your favorite part about being in the band and being a drummer and a musician in the band?
It's a tricky one, that, because there's so much that is cool about it. I mean, I do love playing live shows. I love the response of the crowd, and just being together with my friends that I've known for my entire life, and just creating and playing this stuff that we've made out of nothing, But also there's the technical aspect of it, the recording process, the mixing, the mastering. Because I've always been a bit of a geek, and I'm an IT engineer by trade. I love all the sort of technological stuff and figuring out how things work and learning new techniques to do with all of that kind of process. But mainly it's just having fun with a group of guys that I've known my entire life, and we just continue to be creative. I don't think there's any feeling like it, really.
What's it like when you're doing a live performance and a new fan comes to your show, and what kind of Obzidian show will a new fan get from you guys?
In a lot of the reviews that we've had from people who watch us out at on the circuit, we always get praised for our groove-laden sound. So it's not purely thrash, it's not purely death, and it's not purely groove. It's a bit of a mix of all of them. I know a lot of people have called us like a sort of thrashy version of Black Sabbath, because we've got a lot of those sort of slower, sludgier breakdown parts in a death metal song, which you would never usually hear. So we mix quite a couple of those styles together. And our shows are just energy, basically, because we've got a roaming vocalist who doesn't play guitar. So we're basically a three-piece with a vocalist. He's just like an absolute animal. He's all over the stage. He's in the crowd. He's, working them up. And a lot of our stage show is down to him being able to work the crowd, really. But a lot of our stuff is just energy. And I think it sounds quite focused as well, because we haven't got that second guitarist. We've just got one guitarist and a bass player. The bass player tends to become the second guitarist, and it just makes it sound so thick and so tight. So yeah, a lot of people have basically praised our energy and just the aggression that we deliver, really. And from the first note, we just aim to just go full out.
Paul, where do you see your band in the near future? Your goals to where you want to be as a kick-ass thrash metal band?
It's a tricky one. If you'd have asked me about 10 years ago, I'd have probably said that we want to be playing more festivals like Bloodstock and Download, and come into the States and doing tours there, going to Europe and doing tours there, maybe even going to sort of Japan and Australia, because I know Australia's got a crazy metal scene at the moment. There's a lot of good deathcore bands coming out of Australia at the minute. But as with everything, life moves on, and three of us have got children now, and me and Matty have got young children. Our guitarist has got slightly older children, and we've all got full-time jobs, or at least we all did before we got furloughed and COVID and all that. Right. And I think your priorities change from taking the band as far as you can to sort of selecting what you think is going to be good for the band, but also be good for you, which is why we're quite excited with this Hard Rock Hell Ibiza tour that we're doing next May. That's going to be good fun, and obviously it'll be a good sort of launch pad to get our music into an area we haven't managed to get into before, which is Europe. And I think at this stage it's just about having fun, seeing how far we can take it, and just staying friendly with the right kind of people and the right contacts, and building on our history, really. Like I say, we've been going for 20 years coming up next year, so
long time.
We've got longevity, and we've got a lot of music behind us, and it's just trying to find a way to get that to more people, really, you know.
What is your thoughts on the music industry today?
It's changed a lot. It has definitely changed a lot. I mean, when we released Damned Eternal, which wasn't even that long ago, I think that was probably 10, 12 years ago now, that was very sort of industry driven. We had a distribution contract, we had a medium label contract, which helped us with getting into publications like Metal Hammer and Kerrang and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I think as the industry has started to age with the artists as well, I think the internet has kind of taken over on everything, and obviously streaming services have taken over from CD sales. Vinyl has made a resurgence, which I don't think anybody saw coming. And yeah, the whole scene has changed really, and I think now it's a very YouTube, social media driven thing. And some of my favorite artists that I found in the last 5 or 6 years, I found them through YouTube. They're either YouTubers who have a band, or they're a band that I found through YouTube because it's so accessible. Right. And I think that's going to be the future of it, to be fair. I think the industry needs to adapt to fit the modern consumer, really, because a lot of people are consuming music in a lot of different ways. And even though CDs are still around, and we still produce CDs because we like the artwork and we like to have a physical thing to put in a collection, I think acknowledging that the future is streaming and is internet-based stuff, and a lot of bands that go and play huge tours now have never played live before that tour, and they've just built up their following purely on YouTube and Facebook. Right. So I think that's kind of how the industry is going to go. So 10 years from now, maybe it'll be completely like that. Who knows? Right.
What advice would you give to new and upcoming bands on the scene?
I don't know if we're really in a position to give any advice, because what we've probably done isn't the correct way to do things, and every band makes mistakes along the way. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that I think has helped us the most is to get good management that you trust. We've got a guy called Dan Carter, who, when we joined him, was with a company called Bearded Monkey, and now he's joined with Fat Angel Management. And ever since we joined up with him, we've just gone strength to strength, basically. And that golden year, that 2018 year, where we played all the festivals that we've grown up loving and attending as fans, that was all pretty much down to him. Obviously our music probably had a little bit to do with it, but it was mainly down to him and the way that he networks and the way that he deals with people. He's just a great guy. So I'd say, number one, if you're looking at touring or recording albums or trying to get your sound and your music and your name out there, just find some management you can trust. Whether it's just a friend who wants to do it as a project, or if it's a professional management company, you need to be able to 100% trust them and be able to say what you want to say without having to change your view on anything. You have to be able to voice your concerns honestly. Otherwise, you're just going to end up treading water for years, basically, which is kind of what we did in the early days. Right. But like I say, once you've got that connection, and once you've got that good management who maybe was in a band previously and they know the circuit, they know the contacts, and they know how things go, they can lend you a lot of experience for, in our case, is not a lot of expenditure. So it's always good to get good management on board, especially people who've been in the industry and on the circuit themselves. Aside from that, just have fun and write good tunes, really.
Absolutely. Please tell us about approaching and trying to get on a big-time record label. What's the process like trying to even get on a well-named metal label?
I think it's really tough. I mean, even in the early years, when that was our aim. Our aim was to get signed to a label. Like every band that starts out, they're like, we've got a band, we're playing cool songs, and we're all friends. We just want to get signed to Nuclear Blast or Roadrunner Records. It's very difficult to get in contact with the right people, and I think the music industry, especially label level, is all about contact and all about networking. And until you get your foot in the door and until you get to the right person that you need to speak to, it's really tough to actually even get to talk to people like that. And we've had a couple of offers from fairly big labels over the years, but it's never really worked out just because of circumstances or, particular contract issues. But we've kind of taken the approach of being independent just because we like to have control of what we do. Right. A couple of times in the distant past, we've given away control and not really had enough in return to see why we gave away that control. So nowadays we just we're kind of wary of medium-sized labels, because unfortunately there are a lot of people out there just trying to make money off bands. Not as much as they used to be, because labels aren't seen as the sort of the be-all and end-all anymore. It's not like that's the target for people now. I think the target is just to communicate with the audience directly, because now we have social media, YouTube, Spotify, all of those ways to communicate directly with your audience. You don't really need that label anymore. And it would be nice to have the backing and the financial support of a big label, but it's not really required nowadays, especially for this style of music. I honestly think if you've got decent management and they've got some good contacts, you can go anywhere, really.
Please tell us where we can buy your music and give a plug on your websites and social media sites.
Yeah, so our main website is www.obzidian, that's obzidian.co.uk. That's also got links to our Facebook. You can find us on Facebook, just search up Obzidian, or facebook.com/Obzidian Band. We're also on Twitter and Instagram with similar handles. You can buy our stuff from our website. There's a link on our website. We're also on Bandcamp. That's what we use as our store. So you can search us up on Bandcamp. Also, if you just find us on Facebook and give us a direct message or a personal message, we can just sort out stuff from there as well, because we're quite approachable and we answer pretty much straight away because we're always on it. And then apart from that, we're on all good streaming services, so Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, Deezer, all of those. And because we're in control of what we release, every time we release something, it'll go out to all those services as well. So YouTube is obviously another good place to find some of our stuff.
Paul, is there anything else you would like to cover that we haven't covered yet you would like to talk about in closing?
Not really. I think we've covered quite a lot there, to be fair. I just want to say thanks for the opportunity, and it's always good to speak to someone overseas that we usually wouldn't get that kind of audience, just because of the situation that we're in and the kind of stage that we're at as a band. It's always good to get out to new people and new places. So if there was a possibility of coming over to the States and doing a tour after all the COVID has died down, then we'd love to do that. So it's good to have people pushing the music over there as well and helping us out. So I appreciate that.
Hopefully, if you get to the States, we can go see the band in my local area of Atlanta, Georgia, the band Obzidian.
Absolutely.
Paul, it's been a pleasure and an honor having you on the show here with us tonight. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule for doing this interview with us here at MetalMessiahRadio.com, the Electric Circus. The best of luck to you guys of Obzidian. You are more than welcome to come back on the show when the next offering comes out.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that'd be great. So when the album's fully released, we'll do another session.
And please tell us about the new single, Raven's Wing. Tell us a little bit about the song.
Yeah, it's a good old school thrash song. It's one of the few where we are just literally going balls out with thrash and a little bit of death metal influence. It's aggressive, it's quick, and it just gets to the point. I think the message behind the song is about being trapped inside your own head with your own demons and just trying to work through that and escape it. And it's just a real aggressive old school thrash song. It's one of my favorites off the album, to be honest.
All right, everyone. Up next, I got a brand new single, the new song by Obzidian. Here is Raven's Wing. Joker Live, one place, MetalMessiahRadio.com. We are your metal music messiah. Crank it!
Greetings, Metal Maniacs. This is Dave Softy. Wanted to take the time to thank you for an outstanding 12th season of Metal Meltdown on Metal Messiah Radio. Keep on supporting the metal you love. Keep on thrashing on J0KeR's Electric Circus, and I'll see you in the fall. Keep on thrashing.